The baggage carousel at JFK groaned like it was personally offended by the weight of everyone's vacation souvenirs. Emma Chen shifted her 6-year-old daughter Maya higher on her hip, ignoring the protest from muscles that had been tensed for 3 straight days of funeral arrangements, lawyer meetings, and the slow dismantling of her mother's life in Chicago. "Mama, when can we go home?" Maya's voice was thick with exhaustion, her small fingers twisted in Emma's coat. "Soon, baby, as soon as we get our suitcase." Emma scanned the belt with burning eyes. Sleep had been theoretical for the past 72 hours. Between Maya's nightmares about Grandma being gone and Emma's own spiral of panic about the debt. God, the debt. Her brain felt wrapped in cotton. There. The black hardshell suitcase with the distinctive silver buckles tumbled onto the carousel. Emma lunged forward, Maya's weight throwing her off balance as she grabbed the handle and yanked. Heavier than she remembered. The thought flickered and died. Everything felt heavier after burying your mother and discovering she'd left behind $67,000 in medical bills instead of the small savings account Emma had desperately hoped existed. She extended the handle and wheeled toward the exit, her feet screaming in the flats she'd worn to the funeral and hadn't bothered changing out of. Maya's breathing had gone soft and even against her neck. Finally asleep. Small mercies. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The taxi line stretched forever, but Emma barely registered it. Her mind was already at tomorrow. The nursing shift she couldn't afford to miss. The rent due in 6 days that she didn't have. The call she needed to make to her mother's creditors explaining that no, there was no estate, no life insurance, nothing but sorry and more sorry until the word lost all meaning. 23 minutes later, they collapsed into a cab that smelled like old coffee and air freshener. Emma gave her address in Queens, 4th floor walk-up, elevator broken more often than not, and let her eyes close as the driver merged into traffic. The apartment greeted them with the particular silence of a place abandoned in crisis. Toys scattered across the floor from their frantic packing 4 days ago. Dishes in the sink. The vanilla candle burned down to nothing, leaving a ring of wax on the coffee table. Emma carried Maya straight to bed, not bothering with pajamas or teeth brushing or any of the normal rituals. Her daughter was asleep before her head touched the pillow. Emma stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching the rise and fall of Maya's chest, the way her fingers curled around Mr. Hops, the stuffed rabbit that had cost $3.99 at a thrift store but might as well have been made of gold for how fiercely Maya loved it. This was what mattered, not the crushing debt, not the exhaustion, not the fear that kept her awake at 3 a.m. calculating and recalculating numbers that never added up to anything except more panic. Just this small person who trusted Emma completely to keep their world from falling apart. In the living room, Emma finally turned to the suitcase. Laundry needed sorting, work scrubs needed washing. She needed to prepare her bag for tomorrow's shift at Mount Sinai. She lifted the case onto the coffee table. The silver buckles released smoothly. Too smoothly. Emma's case always stuck on the left side, required jiggling and sometimes outright violence to open. She lifted the lid. Black leather document folders. Sealed manila envelopes. A laptop in a protective sleeve. Accordion files with tabs labeled in neat handwriting. No clothes, no toiletries, no hastily packed funeral outfit or Maya's stuffed animals or anything that belonged to Emma Chen. Her stomach dropped to her feet. Wrong suitcase. Emma's hands moved automatically, nursing training kicking in with the same detached efficiency she used during a trauma code. Assess the situation, gather information, make decisions based on facts, not panic. She reached for the first leather folder, unzipped it. Inside were documents printed on heavy paper, official looking with letterhead she didn't recognize. Financial statements for businesses, restaurants, shipping companies, real estate holdings. Numbers with so many zeros her eyes couldn't quite process them. The second folder contained photographs. Men in expensive suits standing outside warehouses. Security camera stills with dates and timestamps. Handwritten notes in margins identifying people by what looked like nicknames. Big Tommy, Frankie Cards, Jimmy the Brick. The third folder was marked Organizational Structure in printed labels. Emma knew, absolutely knew, she should close it. Should close the entire suitcase, call the airport, report the mix-up, get her own luggage back without ever knowing what kind of world she'd accidentally stumbled into. But her hands were already opening the folder. An organizational chart filled the first page, names connected by lines showing hierarchy and relationships. At the top, in bold print, Marchetti Family, New York Operations. Below it, dozens of names with titles that made Emma's blood run cold. Enforcer, Northeast Territory, Financial Controller, Legitimate Holdings, Security Chief, Port Operations, Logistics Coordinator, International Shipping. And at the very top, centered above everything else with a single line connecting to every other name on the chart, Dominic Marchetti. Boss Emma set the page down carefully, her hands suddenly steady in the way they got during emergencies. The calm that descended when someone coded in the ER, when there was too much blood and not enough time, when panic would kill people and detachment kept them breathing. She was holding a briefcase full of Mafia documents, not just any documents. Organizational structures, financial records detailing money laundering operations, property holdings that were clearly fronts, surveillance photographs of what had to be criminal activities, the kind of detailed intelligence that could dismantle an entire organization if it fell into federal hands, or get someone killed if the wrong people discovered it was missing. Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. She stared at it. Unknown number. Manhattan area code. Her finger hovered over the screen. Every crime show she'd ever half-watched while folding laundry suddenly played in her mind. They couldn't possibly know already. The flight had only landed 90 minutes ago. There was no conceivable way. The buzzing stopped, then immediately started again. Same unknown number. Emma's throat went dry. What if it was just the airport? Lost and found trying to arrange an exchange? What if this could all be resolved with a simple mix-up, a quick swap, no one needing to know what she'd seen? She answered. Hello? Silence. Not empty silence, but the kind weighted with presence. Someone was there, listening, deciding what to say or how much to reveal. Then a voice. Male, deep, controlled in a way that suggested violence held on a very tight leash. You have something that belongs to me. Not the airport. Emma's nursing instincts kicked in harder. Keep your voice calm, don't let them hear panic. Project competence, even when you're terrified. I think there was a mix-up at baggage claim, she said, keeping her tone level. I accidentally took someone else's suitcase. I'm happy to return it. I know exactly what you took. The voice remained calm, almost pleasant, which somehow made it infinitely more frightening. The question is whether you've opened it. Lying felt pointless. Whoever this was clearly had resources Emma couldn't begin to comprehend. Yes, I opened it looking for my own things. I didn't know what it was until I saw the contents. A pause. Emma could hear background noise, voices speaking Italian, the clink of silverware against plates, music that sounded like it came from a restaurant. What's your name? Every instinct screamed not to answer, but he was asking, which meant he didn't know yet, which meant maybe she still had some small sliver of control in this situation. Emma Chen. Emma Chen. He repeated it slowly like he was committing it to memory or feeding it into some database. And where are you right now, Emma? I'd prefer not to say over the phone. Her voice remained steady. But I can meet you somewhere public tomorrow to return the briefcase. Somewhere with witnesses. A low sound that might have been a laugh. You think witnesses keep you safe from me? I think they make me safer than giving my home address to a stranger who clearly isn't calling from the airport lost and found. Smart. The approval in his tone was unmistakable. But naive. I already know where you live, Emma Chen. Fourth floor walk-up in Queens. Apartment. 4C. Building with the broken elevator and the leaking pipes the landlord won't fix. You have a daughter, Maya, age 6. You work as an emergency room nurse at Mount Sinai Hospital. You just returned from Chicago where you buried your mother, Diane Chen, 3 days ago. He paused, letting each detail land like a physical blow. Should I continue, or do we understand each other now? The air left Emma's lungs. How? Resources. The moment you answered this phone from a number I'm tracking, I knew everything I needed to know about you. His voice softened slightly, but not in a comforting way. Now, you have exactly one option. You wait for me at your apartment. I'll be there in 35 minutes. You give me what belongs to me, and we discuss how to ensure your cooperation moving forward. And if I call the police? Then your daughter becomes collateral in a situation she doesn't deserve to be part of. The threat was delivered in the same calm, reasonable tone. I'm not a monster, Emma. I don't hurt civilians, especially not children. But if you involve law enforcement, this becomes complicated in ways that won't end well for anyone. Do you understand? Emma's gaze went to Maya's bedroom door. Her daughter was 30 feet away, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that their lives had just tilted into something dark and dangerous. Yes, she whispered. I understand. Good. 35 minutes. Don't leave. Don't call anyone. Just wait. The line went dead. Emma stood frozen in her living room, phone still pressed to her ear, her mind racing through options that all led to the same terrible conclusion. She could run, grab Maya, get on a train, disappear into somewhere else. But he knew who she was, where she worked, probably where Maya went to school. Running would only delay the inevitable and potentially make everything worse. She could call the police. But what would she tell them? That she had a briefcase full of what appeared to be Mafia documents? Would they even believe her? Would they protect her? Or would involving authorities put her in more danger? Or she could stay. Meet him. Return the briefcase. Hope that her obvious innocence, single mother, nurse, just trying to survive, would be enough to convince him she wasn't a threat. Emma looked at the briefcase, at the organizational charts and financial records and photographs that represented someone's entire criminal empire documented in black and white. Then she looked at Maya's bedroom door. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Emma carefully closed the briefcase, making sure everything was exactly as she'd found it. Then she went to the kitchen, started a pot of coffee she knew she wouldn't drink, and tried to slow her racing heart. She had 33 minutes to prepare for the most dangerous conversation of her life. The knock came exactly 35 minutes later. 3 sharp raps, controlled and authoritative. Emma checked the peephole first, her hands surprisingly steady. 2 men stood in the dim hallway. The one in front was tall, easily 6'2" or 6'3", with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Roman statues. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything even through the distortion of the peephole's lens. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of Emma's rent. Behind him stood a broader man, older, with gray at his temples, and the kind of alert stillness that suggested military training or worse. Emma's hands trembled as she undid the chain, the deadbolt, the regular lock. She opened the door 6 inches, keeping her body in the gap. Emma Chen? The tall man's voice was the same one from the phone. Somehow it was more unsettling in person, smooth and controlled with an undercurrent of something dangerous. Yes. I'm Dominic Marchetti. He didn't extend his hand, just stated his name like it should mean something. May I come in? The formal politeness was almost surreal. Emma stepped back, opening the door wider. Dominic entered first, his eyes immediately scanning the apartment with the thoroughness of someone trained to assess threats and exits. He took in the modest furniture, the scattered toys, the general exhaustion evident in every corner of her life. The second man followed, positioning himself near the door. Not blocking it, exactly, but making it clear that leaving wasn't an option until this conversation concluded. The briefcase. Dominic's attention returned to Emma. She gestured toward the coffee table where it sat among the clutter of her normal life. Unopened mail, Maya's coloring books, a coffee mug with lipstick on the rim from 3 days ago. Dominic crossed to it with purposeful strides, opening it with the practiced efficiency of someone who knew exactly what should be inside. His hands moved through the folders, checking contents, verifying documents. Emma watched his face for any reaction, relief, anger, suspicion, but he remained perfectly composed. Everything appears to be intact. He closed the case and turned back to her. You said you opened it. What did you see? Lying seemed pointless. He clearly had ways of knowing things, ways of verifying information. Financial records, property holdings, an organizational chart with names and titles, photographs. And what did you do with that information? Nothing. Emma's voice was steady. I saw what it was. I received your call, and I waited for you to arrive. I didn't take pictures. I didn't make copies. I didn't contact anyone. I just wanted to return it and get my own luggage back. Dominic studied her with an intensity that made her feel transparent, like he could see past the calm exterior to the terror underneath, past her words to verify their truth. Why? Why what? Why didn't you call the police the moment you saw what was inside? His head tilted slightly. Most people would have. This kind of documentation could be very valuable to federal authorities. Could potentially earn you witness protection, relocation, a complete fresh start somewhere far from your debt and your problems. Emma hadn't even considered that angle. Because I have a 6-year-old daughter sleeping in the next room. Because I understand enough about how the world works to know that involving police would make this situation infinitely more complicated and dangerous. Because I'm a nurse, Mr. Marchetti, not an informant or an opportunist. I just want to live my life and raise my daughter and not be part of whatever world that briefcase represents. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite approval, but a recognition of her logic. Most people aren't that pragmatic when presented with what they perceive as leverage. I'm not most people. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. I see people at their worst every day in the ER. I know what desperation looks like, what violence looks like, what happens when people make choices based on fear or greed instead of common sense. This, she gestured at the briefcase, isn't leverage. It's a liability I want nothing to do with. Dominic moved closer. Not threatening, but close enough that Emma had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. You're right that it's a liability, which is why I need more than just the briefcase returned. I need assurance that what you saw stays confidential. It will. I swear. I have absolutely no reason to tell anyone anything about what I saw. Swearing isn't sufficient. His voice remained calm, reasonable, which somehow made it more terrifying. I need insurance, a guarantee of your silence that goes beyond good intentions. What kind of insurance? Before Dominic could answer, a small voice called from the hallway. Mama? Every muscle in Emma's body went rigid. Maya appeared in the hallway entrance, rubbing her eyes with one hand while clutching Mr. Hops with the other. She stopped when she saw the strangers, her expression shifting from sleepy confusion to uncertainty. Mama, who are they? Just some people who needed to pick something up, sweetheart. Emma moved immediately toward her daughter, instinct taking over. She needed to get between Maya and these men, needed to shield her from whatever this was. Go back to bed, baby, everything's fine. But Dominic had already turned, his attention shifting to the small girl in her unicorn pajamas. Emma saw him take in Maya's appearance, her sleep-mussed hair, her delicate features, the worn stuffed rabbit she held against her chest like armor. His expression changed, softened in a way Emma hadn't expected. "Hello," Dominic said, his voice gentling considerably. He crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to Maya's eye level. "I'm Dominic. What's your name?" Maya pressed closer to Emma's legs, suddenly shy. "Maya. That's a very pretty name. And who's this?" He gestured to the stuffed rabbit. "Mr. Hops." Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "Mr. Hops looks very well loved." Dominic's tone was remarkably patient. "Your mama is right. You should go back to bed. We'll be very quiet so you can sleep. I promise." Maya looked up at Emma, seeking permission or reassurance or both. Emma nodded, her throat too tight for words. She walked Maya back to the bedroom, tucking her in again, whispering that everything was fine, that the visitors would leave soon, that she was safe. When Emma returned to the living room, Dominic was examining a photograph on her bookshelf. Emma and Maya at Coney Island last summer, both grinning despite the sunburn and the cheap boardwalk food and the credit card debt Emma had accumulated for that single day of normalcy. "She looks like you," Dominic said, setting the frame down carefully. "How old did you say?" 6. Just turned 6 last month. Emma stayed near the hallway, ready to put herself between him and Maya's room if necessary. "And her father?" "Not in the picture. Never has been." The admission came automatically. Emma had stopped feeling shame about it years ago. "It's just the two of us." Dominic nodded slowly, processing this information. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and waited. A response came within seconds. He read it, his expression unchanging, then put the phone away. "I've had my people run a comprehensive background check." He met her gaze directly. "You're exactly who you claim to be. No criminal record, no concerning associations, no connections that would suggest you're anything other than what you appear to be. A single mother working as an ER nurse, trying to raise her daughter on $52,000 a year while carrying approximately $89,000 in combined debt." The specific number made Emma's stomach clench. "Just medical bills from my mother's cancer treatment and student loans from nursing school. Nothing that would be relevant to organized crime." "Actually, the debt is very relevant to me." Dominic picked up the briefcase. "Because it provides exactly the insurance I need." Emma's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "You need money. I need your silence. The solution is straightforward." He moved toward the door, the other man falling into step behind him. "I'm going to eliminate every dollar of your debt. Your mother's medical bills, your student loans, all of it. In exchange, you never speak about what you saw in that briefcase. To anyone. Ever." What?" Emma's mind struggled to process the offer. "I'll also establish a trust fund for Maya's education. Something substantial enough to ensure she can attend any university she chooses without the burden of loans." Dominic paused at the door. "Consider it insurance. Consider it payment for your silence. Consider it whatever allows you to accept it. But understand that refusing isn't an option I'm offering. That's... No. I don't want your money. I just want to forget this ever happened." "The money ensures you have motivation to forget." His logic was cold but inescapable. Someone who's desperate might be tempted to sell information to the highest bidder. Someone who's comfortable has no incentive to take that risk. Emma opened her mouth to argue, to insist she didn't need blood money or Mafia charity or whatever this was. But then she thought about the rent due in 6 days, the collection calls that came 3 times daily, The notice from Maya's school about unpaid fees, the electricity bill she'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. Why? The question came out barely above a whisper. Why would you do this for a complete stranger? Dominic's hand was on the doorknob, but he turned back to face her fully. Because you made a choice tonight that most people wouldn't make. You chose to return what wasn't yours, instead of trying to profit from it. You chose to protect your daughter instead of involving authorities who can't actually guarantee your safety. His dark eyes held hers. That kind of judgment is rare. It deserves to be rewarded. Or bought, Emma countered quietly. A slight smile touched his lips. Perhaps both. He opened the door, then paused one more time. Someone will contact you tomorrow regarding the debt repayment. Don't be alarmed. Simply provide the account information and everything will be handled discreetly. And if I refuse? You won't. It wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact delivered with absolute certainty. Because you're too intelligent to let pride stand between your daughter and financial security. They left without another word. Emma stood in her apartment doorway, listening to their footsteps fade down the stairwell. Then she closed the door, engaged all 3 locks, and sank onto the couch. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up. Her heart raced. Her breath came in short gasps. But underneath the fear and confusion and shock was a terrible, undeniable truth. He was right. She wasn't going to refuse, and that terrified her more than anything else that had happened tonight. Emma didn't sleep. She sat on her couch until dawn painted her apartment in shades of gray, staring at the space where Dominic Marchetti had stood, replaying every word of their conversation until it felt like a dream she couldn't quite wake from. At 6 a.m., she forced herself to move. Maya would be up soon. Life continued, even when your world had tilted sideways into something dark and incomprehensible. She was pouring cereal when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Different from last night, but still Manhattan. Her hand hesitated over the screen. Then she answered. Ms. Chen? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. My name is Patricia Volpe. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Marchetti regarding the financial arrangements discussed last night. Emma's throat went dry. Yes. Hello? I'll need account numbers and creditor information for the debts to be settled. I can email you a secure form, or we can handle this over the phone if you prefer. Whichever makes you more comfortable. The casual efficiency was almost worse than Dominic's controlled intensity. This was just business to her, just another transaction in what was probably a long list of tasks for the day. Email is fine, Emma managed. Excellent. You should receive it within the next 10 minutes. Please complete and return it by end of business today. The transfers will be processed within 48 hours. Patricia paused. Mr. Marchetti also asked me to inform you that the trust fund for your daughter will be established separately. You'll receive documentation once it's finalized. Ms. Volpe. Patricia, please. Patricia. Emma gripped the phone tighter. I need you to understand something. I didn't ask for this. I don't want to be bought or controlled or whatever this is. Silence. Then Patricia's voice came back, slightly warmer. Ms. Chen, I've worked for the Marchetti family for 12 years. I handle their legitimate business operations, the restaurants, the import companies, the real estate holdings, everything above board. She paused. Mr. Marchetti doesn't buy people. He invests in them. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. People he buys eventually disappoint him. People he invests in tend to exceed expectations. Patricia's tone shifted back to professional. The email will arrive shortly. Have a good day, Ms. Chen. The line went dead. 10 minutes later, the email arrived from a law firm Emma had actually heard of, one of those white-shoe Manhattan practices that occupied entire floors of buildings in Midtown. The form was comprehensive. Creditor names, account numbers, outstanding balances, contact information. Emma stared at it while Maya ate her cereal, chattering about a dream she'd had about Mr. Hops learning to fly. This was real. This was actually happening. She could still refuse, could delete the email, ignore the calls, pretend last night had been some sort of exhaustion-induced hallucination. But then what? The debt wouldn't disappear. The collectors wouldn't stop calling. The constant calculation of which bill to pay and which to let slide for another month wouldn't end. Emma opened the file where she kept all her creditor information, a depressing folder labeled Financial Nightmare that she'd created in a moment of bitter humor, and began filling out the form. 47 hours later, Emma's phone lit up with notification after notification. Your payment to Mount Sinai Medical Center has been processed. Remaining balance, 0.2. Your payment to Midland Credit Management has been processed. Remaining balance, 0.0. Your payment to Department of Education. Federal student loans has been processed. Remaining balance, 0.0. She sat on her couch, staring at her phone, while Maya watched cartoons 3 feet away. $89,000 in debt. Gone. Erased as if it had never existed. Emma opened her banking app with shaking hands. Her checking account, which had contained $847 2 days ago, now showed $25,000. Her breath caught. A new email notification appeared. Patricia Volpe again. Ms. Chen, all outstanding debts have been settled as of 4:05 p.m. today. The additional funds in your checking account are for immediate living expenses and any unexpected costs that may arise. Mr. Marchetti felt it was prudent to ensure you have a financial cushion. The trust fund for Maya's education has been established with an initial deposit of $500,000, structured to grow through conservative investments until she reaches college age. Documentation will arrive via courier tomorrow. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. Best regards, Patricia Volpe, Senior Financial Manager, Marchetti Enterprises. Emma read the email 3 times. Then she set her phone down carefully, walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and cried silently into a towel so Maya wouldn't hear. She cried from relief and terror in equal measure. From the weight of debt lifting and the weight of obligation settling in its place. From gratitude and resentment and the horrible, confusing knowledge that her life had just been fundamentally altered by a man she'd met once for 20 minutes. When she finally emerged, Maya was standing outside the bathroom door, Mr. Hops dangling from one hand. "Mama, are you sad about Grandma again?" Emma crouched down, pulling her daughter into a hug. "A little bit, baby, but also happy about some other things. Grown-up feelings are complicated sometimes." "Okay." Maya accepted this with the easy logic of 6-year-olds. "Can we have mac and cheese for dinner?" "Yeah, sweetheart, we can have whatever you want." That night, after Maya was asleep, Emma's phone rang again. She recognized the number now, Dominic's personal line. She answered on the 3rd ring. "The arrangements are complete?" His voice was as controlled as she remembered. "Yes. I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem adequate." "Thank you isn't necessary. This is a business arrangement, Emma. You're providing something valuable, your silence, and you're being compensated appropriately. $500,000 for a 6-year-old's education isn't appropriate compensation, it's..." She struggled for words. "It's insane. It's insurance." His tone remained matter-of-fact. "Maya's future is secure regardless of what happens to you or to me. That security ensures you have every reason to maintain our agreement." The bluntness of it, regardless of what happens to you, made her stomach clench. "Are you saying I'm in danger?" "No." The answer came quickly. "You're not in danger from me or from anyone in my organization. But I operate in a world where information has value and people make choices based on self-interest. The trust fund removes financial desperation as a potential motivator for breaking our agreement." Emma moved to her window, looking out at Queens stretching toward Manhattan's glittering skyline. You really have this all calculated, don't you? Every angle covered, every potential problem solved before it can even develop. That's how I've stayed alive and free for 15 years in a business where most people don't last 5. A pause. How are you handling everything? The question surprised her with its apparent genuineness. I'm processing. It's a lot to take in. I imagine it is. Your entire financial situation changed in 48 hours. His voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, I meant what I said about your judgment. You made smart choices under pressure. That's rare. I made terrified choices that happened to work out. Fear and intelligence aren't mutually exclusive. Often fear sharpens judgment rather than clouding it. He paused again. I'm going to have someone check on you periodically. Nothing intrusive, just periodic verification that you and Maya are safe and that no one has approached you asking questions about what happened. Someone meaning who? His name is Vincent Russo. He's been with my family for 20 years. Completely trustworthy, good with civilians, won't make you uncomfortable. Dominic's tone took on a harder edge. Emma, I need you to understand something. The briefcase you accidentally took contained information that certain people would very much like to have. Federal authorities, rival organizations, ambitious individuals within my own structure. If anyone approaches you, and I mean anyone, asking about that night, or about me, or about anything that seems remotely connected, you contact me immediately. Fear spiked through her chest. I thought you said I wasn't in danger. You're not in danger because I'm ensuring you're protected, but protection requires vigilance. He let that sink in. Vincent will introduce himself tomorrow. He'll give you a phone, separate from your personal device, that connects directly to my security team. You keep it with you always. If anything feels wrong, you use it. This is insane. I'm a nurse, not a witness in some mob protection program. You're not in witness protection. You're in my protection. There's a difference. Emma wanted to argue, to insist this was too much, that she didn't need armed guards or special phones or any of this. But Dominic had already demonstrated how thoroughly he understood risk assessment and threat mitigation. Okay, she said quietly. I'll meet with Vincent tomorrow. Good. His voice warmed fractionally. Try to sleep, Emma. The hard part is over. Everything from here is just adjustment. After he hung up, Emma stood at her window for a long time, watching the city lights and trying to convince herself that he was right. The hard part was over. She almost believed it. Vincent Russo appeared at her apartment the next evening at 7 p.m., precisely when he'd said he would in the text Emma had received that afternoon. He was older than she'd expected, maybe late 50s, with silver hair and the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd seen things most people only encountered in nightmares. But his eyes were kind when he smiled, and he waited patiently while Emma verified his identity through the peephole before opening the door. Ms. Chen. He extended his hand, his grip firm but not aggressive. Vincent Russo, Mr. Marchetti asked me to stop by. Please come in. Emma stepped aside, acutely aware of how modest her apartment must seem to someone who worked for a man like Dominic Marchetti. But Vincent's gaze didn't judge. He simply took in the space with the same professional assessment she'd seen Dominic use. Exits, sight lines, potential vulnerabilities. Nice place, he said, and somehow made it sound genuine. 4th floor is good. Harder for unwanted visitors to access than ground level. Maya appeared from her bedroom, curiosity overcoming shyness. Mama? Who's this? This is Mr. Russo. He's a friend of someone Mama knows. Emma gestured to the couch. Maya, why don't you keep coloring while Mr. Russo and I talk? Vincent crouched down to Maya's level with the same instinctive movement Dominic had used. What are you coloring? A unicorn. Maya held up her picture proudly. Her name is Sparkle, and she eats rainbows. That's a very good unicorn. Vincent examined the drawing seriously. I especially like the rainbow you gave her for breakfast. Maya giggled and returned to her coloring, satisfied with this assessment. Vincent straightened and pulled a small phone from his jacket pocket. This is for you. It's encrypted, untraceable, and connects directly to our security operations. You need anything at all. You call the first number programmed in. Someone answers within 30 seconds. Guaranteed. Emma took the phone, turning it over in her hands. It was smaller than her regular phone, simpler, with only basic functions visible. I've also been asked to do periodic check-ins, Vincent continued. Nothing invasive. I'll text first, ask if it's a good time to stop by or call. You tell me yes or no. If you say no 3 times in a row, that triggers an in-person verification to make sure you're actually okay and not being coerced. This feels like witness protection. It's not. Vincent's tone was gentle but firm. Witness protection is run by federal marshals who rotate assignments and follow bureaucratic protocols. This is personal protection from an organization that has a vested interest in your continued safety and silence. We're better at it than the government, and we're more motivated. Emma wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all, but Vincent's earnest expression stopped her. He genuinely believed what he was saying. How often will these check-ins happen? Initially, every 3 days. After a few weeks? If everything remains stable, we'll reduce to weekly. Eventually, monthly. He paused. Mr. Marchetti doesn't want to disrupt your life, Ms. Chen. He just wants to ensure no one else disrupts it either. And if someone approaches me, asks questions, you call immediately. Don't engage. Don't answer questions. Don't try to handle it yourself. Just call. Vincent's eyes hardened slightly. The people who might want information from you aren't the type to be polite about asking. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, if anything feels wrong, you trust that instinct. After Vincent left, with a promise to text in 3 days and a gentle reminder to keep the phone charged, Emma stood in her kitchen, staring at the device in her hand. Her life had become something she didn't recognize, debt-free for the first time since college, a trust fund for her daughter that exceeded anything she'd dared dream about, a direct line to Mafia security and periodic check-ins from a man who probably had more blood on his hands than Emma wanted to imagine, all because she'd grabbed the wrong suitcase at an airport carousel. 3 weeks passed. Vincent texted exactly when he said he would, called when Emma confirmed it was convenient, and somehow made surveillance feel almost friendly. He asked about Maya, remembered details from previous conversations, recommended a good Italian restaurant in her neighborhood that Emma would never have discovered on her own. The money in her checking account remained untouched. Emma couldn't bring herself to spend it. It felt like evidence of something she wasn't ready to accept. But she did start sleeping better. The constant anxiety about bills had dulled to background noise. She could buy Maya new shoes without calculating which credit card had room. She could say yes to the school field trip without her stomach clenching. Small things, normal things, things most people took for granted. At work, Emma threw herself into her shifts with renewed focus. The ER at Mount Sinai was perpetually understaffed and overwhelmed, but she was good at her job. Good at reading patients, at making quick decisions under pressure, at keeping calm when everything around her devolved into chaos. You seem different, her colleague Marcus commented one evening during a rare lull. Less stressed. Did you win the lottery or something? Something like that, Emma replied, checking vitals on a patient waiting for X-ray results. My mother's medical debt got settled. That's great. How'd you manage that? Long-term payment plan finally came through. The lie came easily. Emma had been rehearsing it for days, knowing people would eventually notice the change in her demeanor. It was during her shift on a rainy Thursday evening, exactly 24 days after the airport incident, that everything changed again. Emma was triaging a patient with chest pain when the ER doors burst open. Two men stumbled in, one supporting the other whose white shirt was soaked red with blood. "He's been shot," the supporting man shouted. "Somebody help him." Emma moved immediately, years of training overriding shock. "Get him to trauma 2. Page Dr. Morrison. I need blood typed and crossed, 2 large bore IVs, and trauma panels now." The organized chaos of a shooting victim consumed the next 20 minutes. Emma worked with the precision her training had instilled, cutting away clothing, establishing access, calling out vitals while Dr. Morrison worked to stop the bleeding. It wasn't until the patient was stabilized and headed to surgery that Emma really looked at the man who'd brought him in. He was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair and the kind of expensive leather jacket that seemed out of place in a Queen's emergency room. He paced the waiting area, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that Emma's limited knowledge of the language couldn't fully parse. But she caught certain words. Boss, problems, Russo, need backup. Her blood ran cold. The man ended his call and turned, his eyes meeting Emma's across the ER. Something flickered in his expression, recognition or assessment or calculation. He crossed to where she stood. "You're the nurse who helped him." "Thank you." "It's my job." Emma kept her voice professional, but her heart was racing. "The doctors will update you once he's out of surgery." "What's your name?" Every instinct screamed not to answer, but refusing would draw more attention than cooperating. "Emma Chen." The man's eyes widened fractionally. Then his phone was out again, typing rapidly. Emma turned and walked toward the staff area, her hands shaking. She pulled out the encrypted phone Vincent had given her and dialed the first program number. It rang once. "This is Vincent. What's wrong?" "I'm at work. Mount Sinai ER. We just treated a gunshot victim. The man who brought him in recognized my name. He's making calls right now and I think he knows who I am." "Stay where you are. Don't leave the hospital. I'm 10 minutes away." Vincent's voice was calm but urgent. "Is the man still there?" "Yes. In the waiting area." "Don't approach him. Don't engage. Just stay in a public area with witnesses until I arrive." The line went dead. Emma stood in the staff lounge, her pulse hammering, while the normal sounds of the ER continued around her. Monitors beeping, overhead pages, the eternal shuffle of overworked nurses and exhausted residents. Her normal world. Except it wasn't normal anymore. It hadn't been since the moment she'd opened that briefcase. She'd thought the hard part was over. She'd been wrong. Vincent arrived in 8 minutes, not 10. Emma saw him enter through the ER doors, his gaze sweeping the space with professional efficiency. He spotted the young man in the leather jacket immediately, still pacing, still on his phone, and his expression hardened. He crossed to Emma first. "You okay?" "I'm fine. Shaken, but fine." Emma lowered her voice. "Do you know who that is?" "Marco DeLuca. He's with the Vitale family." "Rivals." Vincent's jaw tightened. "The man you treated was probably hit in a territorial dispute. Marco bringing him here instead of to one of their usual doctors means it was serious enough that normal channels wouldn't work." "Why would he care about my name?" "Because word travels in our world. The fact that you're under Mr. Marchetti's protection isn't a secret among people who pay attention." Vincent pulled out his own phone. "He's probably verifying whether you're actually the Emma Chen from the airport incident or if it's coincidence." Emma's stomach dropped. "And when he confirms it's me? Then he'll try to leverage that information." Vincent was already typing. "But he won't do anything here. Too public, too many witnesses, too much risk. You're safe at the hospital." "But not when I leave." Vincent's silence was answer enough. Emma watched Marco end another call, watched him glance in her direction with calculation in his eyes. She thought about Maya at home with the babysitter Mrs. Kowalski from down the hall. Thought about her normal life that was supposed to be protected. "I need to call Dominic," she said quietly. Vincent nodded and handed her his phone. "Third number down." The line rang twice before Dominic answered. "Vincent, what's the situation?" "It's Emma," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm using Vincent's phone. We have a problem." She heard his sharp intake of breath, the immediate shift to alert focus. "Tell me." Emma explained about the shooting victim, about Marco recognizing her name, about the calls he was making. Dominic was silent for a long moment after she finished. Then, "You're at Mount Sinai?" "Yes." "Stay there. Vincent stays with you. I'm sending additional security to your apartment to verify Maya is safe. No one leaves, no one approaches, until I assess the situation." His voice was ice cold now, the warmth she'd occasionally heard completely absent. "Emma, this is important. Did Marco threaten you in any way? Make any statements that could be construed as intimidation?" "No. He just thanked me for helping his friend and asked my name." "Good. That means he's fishing, not acting. He's trying to confirm information before making a move." A pause. "I'm coming to the hospital. 20 minutes. Do not leave the building under any circumstances." "Dominic, I have a shift to finish." "Your shift is over. Tell your supervisor there's a family emergency. Tell them whatever you need to tell them, but you don't leave without my security present." The line went dead. Emma stared at Vincent's phone, then handed it back. "He's coming here. I heard." Vincent scanned the ER again, his body language subtly shifting into something more protective. "Let's get you somewhere less exposed while we wait." Dominic Marchetti arrived at Mount Sinai in 18 minutes, not 20. Emma was in the staff lounge with Vincent when he entered, flanked by two other men she recognized from the night at her apartment. He wore a dark suit despite the late hour, looking like he'd come directly from some business meeting or dinner. His eyes found her immediately, assessing for injury or distress with the same thoroughness Vincent had used. "You're okay?" It wasn't really a question. "I'm fine. Just..." Emma gestured helplessly. "This is my workplace. I can't have Mafia politics following me here." "It's not following you, it's following information about you." Dominic's tone was matter-of-fact. "Marco DeLuca is trying to determine if your connection to me can be exploited. The answer is no, but he doesn't know that yet." "So what happens now?" "Now I have a conversation with him. Clarify boundaries. Make it clear that you're off-limits." Dominic moved toward the door, then paused. "Where is he?" "Still in the waiting area, last I saw," Vincent supplied. "Good. Wait here." Emma watched through the small window in the lounge door as Dominic approached Marco. She couldn't hear the conversation, but body language told the story. Marco's initial wariness. Dominic's controlled intensity. The brief exchange that lasted maybe 90 seconds. Then Marco nodded once, said something that looked like agreement or acknowledgement, and left through the ER doors without looking back. Dominic returned to the lounge, his expression unreadable. "What did you say to him?" Emma asked. "I explained that you're a civilian who accidentally became involved in my business through no fault of your own, that you're under my protection, and that any attempt to use you as leverage or to extract information from you would be considered a direct attack on my family." He met her gaze. Marco is ambitious but not stupid. He understood the message. And if he doesn't respect it, then he learns why people respect it in the first place. Dominic's voice was cold enough to make Emma shiver. "But he will. The Vitale family doesn't want open conflict with us. They're having their own problems with federal investigations right now. Escalation isn't in their interest." Emma sank into a chair, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming. "This is my life now. Looking over my shoulder, wondering if every patient I treat might recognize my name, worrying that Maya could become collateral in someone else's war. Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then he crouched in front of her chair, bringing himself to eye level in a gesture she was beginning to recognize as characteristic. I'm going to be honest with you, Emma. Complete transparency, even if it's not what you want to hear. He waited until she met his gaze. Yes, there's risk associated with your connection to me. Marco's recognition tonight proves that. But the alternative, me not protecting you, you trying to navigate this alone, that risk is exponentially higher. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. But it's your reality now. And I'm offering you the best possible version of that reality. His voice softened slightly. You and Maya are safe because I've made it clear that your safety is my priority. Any threat to you is a threat to me. In my world, that's the strongest protection that exists. Emma wanted to argue, to insist there had to be another way. But the fear in her chest was already easing, the logic of his words undeniable. What happens next? She asked quietly. Next, Vincent drives you home. Tomorrow, we implement additional security measures. Nothing intrusive, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Just enhanced awareness. Someone watching your building, making sure Maya's school is secure, verifying that your routine remains uncompromised. For how long? Until the risk passes. Until everyone in every organization understands that you're off limits. Dominic stood, extending his hand to help her up. I'm not asking you to live in fear, Emma. I'm asking you to let me handle the things that would give you reason to fear. Emma took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. His grip was warm and steady, and she hated how much comfort she drew from that simple contact. Okay, she whispered. We do this your way. Good. He didn't release her hand immediately. Thank you for calling Vincent right away, for trusting the protocols we established. That kind of cooperation makes protection effective instead of just performative. After Dominic left, after providing Vincent with additional instructions and making several calls that Emma deliberately didn't listen to, Vincent drove her home in a black sedan that smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Maya was asleep when Emma got home, Mrs. Kowalski dozing on the couch with the television on low. Emma paid her extra for the late hour and the short notice, then checked every lock twice before finally allowing herself to collapse into bed. The encrypted phone sat on her nightstand, charging, waiting. Her normal life was becoming something else entirely. And despite her fear, despite her resentment, despite everything she'd lost when she grabbed that briefcase, part of her was starting to realize she might actually survive this. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The next morning, Emma woke to find Vincent sitting in his car across from her building. Not obviously, not threateningly, just there, present, watching. She texted him from the encrypted phone. Is this the enhanced security Dominic mentioned? His response came within seconds. Part of it. You'll barely notice us most days, but we're here. Us? I've got two others rotating with me. You won't see them unless you look for them. That's the point. Emma made breakfast for Maya, got her ready for school, went through all the normal motions of their normal routine. Except now, there was a car across the street, with someone making sure their normal stayed normal. At Maya's school, Emma noticed another man in a gray jacket sitting on a bench across from the entrance. Reading a newspaper, looking entirely unremarkable except for the way his eyes tracked every person who entered or left the building. More security, more protection, more evidence that her life had been fundamentally altered. That evening, Dominic called her personal phone. Not the encrypted one, but her regular number. How was your day? He asked, as if this were a normal conversation between normal people. Surreal. I spotted at least 3 of your people throughout my routine. Emma stirred pasta sauce, phone wedged between her shoulder and ear. How many are there? As many as necessary. He paused. Does it bother you, knowing they're there? Emma considered the question honestly. Less than I expected. It's almost comforting, in a weird, completely abnormal way. Good. That's the goal. Protection shouldn't feel like imprisonment. Dominic? Emma set down the spoon, giving the conversation her full attention. Why are you doing all this? The money was one thing. Insurance against me talking, I understand that logic. But this level of security? The personal phone calls? It's more than just protecting an asset. Silence. Long enough that Emma wondered if she'd overstepped. Then, you remind me of someone. Who? My sister, Sophia. His voice carried a weight Emma hadn't heard before. She was killed 6 years ago. Wrong place, wrong time, caught between 2 families having a territorial dispute. She had nothing to do with my business. Nothing to do with any of it. She was just there. Emma's breath caught. Dominic, I'm so sorry. I've spent 6 years making sure no innocent person gets caught in crossfire because I failed to protect them adequately. He paused. You walked into my world by accident, Emma. But you're here now. And I won't let what happened to Sophia happen to you or to Maya. That's not negotiable. The raw honesty of it settled into Emma's chest like a weight and a promise simultaneously. Thank you, she said quietly, for telling me that. You deserve to know why. His tone shifted back to professional. Vincent will check in tomorrow. If anything concerns you, anything at all, you use the phone. I will. After hanging up, Emma stood in her kitchen for a long moment, processing this new information. Dominic Marchetti wasn't just a calculating crime boss managing risk. He was a man carrying guilt, trying to prevent history from repeating. She was beginning to understand him. And that scared her almost as much as everything else. 6 weeks after the airport incident, Emma's life had settled into a new rhythm. Strange, but manageable. She worked her shifts at Mount Sinai, raised Maya, went through the motions of normalcy while security watched from the shadows. Vincent had become almost a friend. He texted dad jokes and remembered Maya's favorite ice cream flavor. The other security team members rotated seamlessly, present but invisible, unless needed. Emma had even started spending the money Dominic had deposited. New shoes for Maya, groceries without calculating every item, small, luxuries that felt revolutionary after years of deprivation. She told herself this was sustainable, that she could live this half-protected, half-normal existence indefinitely. Then Marco DeLuca showed up at her hospital again. Emma was finishing a chart when she felt eyes on her. She looked up to find Marco standing in the ER waiting area, not injured, not bringing anyone for treatment. Just there. Her blood ran cold. She pulled out the encrypted phone immediately, texting Vincent. Marco's here. ER waiting area. Just standing there watching me. Vincent's response was instant. Don't approach. I'm 3 minutes out. Dominic is being notified. But Marco was already moving toward her, hands visible and empty, expression carefully neutral. Emma Chen. He stopped a respectful distance away. I'm not here to cause problems. Then why are you here? Emma kept the nurses stationed between them, acutely aware of her colleagues watching this interaction with curiosity. Because I need a message delivered to Marchetti, and you're the only person he'll actually listen to right now. Marco's voice was low, urgent. There's going to be an attempt on his life. Tonight. At the restaurant opening in Tribeca. Emma's heart stopped. What? The Colombians. They're making a move because of territory disputes Marchetti doesn't even know about yet. I'm telling you because... He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Because innocent people are going to get caught in the crossfire if this goes down in a public restaurant. People like the nurse who saved my cousin's life 6 weeks ago. Why would you warn me? Warn him. Because the Vitale family doesn't want open war. We want stability. And Marchetti getting killed at a public event means chaos for everyone. Marco's eyes were serious. Tell him to cancel the opening. Tell him the Colombians have 3 shooters positioned outside the restaurant. Tell him I'm giving him this information because I don't want to spend the next 6 months dealing with the fallout when his second-in-command retaliates against everyone in the city. Vincent burst through the ER doors, 2 other men flanking him, but Marco was already backing away, hands raised. I delivered the message. What he does with it is up to him. Marco looked at Emma one last time. You saved someone I love. I'm returning the favor. We're even now. He left before Vincent could reach him. Emma stood frozen, her mind racing. Vincent was immediately at her side. What did he say? He warned me about an assassination attempt. Tonight. Emma's hand shook as she relayed Marco's message. Vincent, is Dominic really going to a restaurant opening tonight? Yes. Bella Notte in Tribeca. It's one of his legitimate businesses. Vincent was already on his phone. Boss, we have a situation. 30 minutes later, Emma sat in the back of Vincent's car, still in her scrubs, being driven toward Tribeca despite her protests that she should go home to Maya. Mrs. Kowalski is with her, and there's security on your building, Vincent had insisted. But the boss wants you at the secure location. If Marco's telling the truth about the Colombians, your apartment could be a secondary target. Emma's stomach churned. This is insane. I'm a nurse. I have no business being anywhere near a potential mob hit. You're a person under Mr. Marchetti's protection who just received credible threat intelligence. That makes you very much part of this situation. Vincent's tone was gentle but firm. They pulled up to a building 3 blocks from Bella Notte. Vincent escorted her to a 5th-floor apartment that was clearly a safe house. Minimal furniture, reinforced windows, security monitors showing multiple angles of the street. Dominic was already there, surrounded by men in dark suits, all speaking in rapid Italian. He looked up when Emma entered, his expression shifting from tactical focus to something that might have been relief. You're okay? He crossed to her immediately, hands briefly gripping her shoulders as if verifying her physical presence. I'm fine. Shaken, but fine. Emma met his gaze. Dominic. Marco said there are 3 shooters. He seemed genuinely concerned about civilian casualties. Marco De Luca doesn't do anything without calculating the benefit to his family. But Dominic's tone lacked its usual certainty. Still, the fact that he warned you specifically, that suggests the threat is real. Are you canceling the opening? No. His answer was immediate and final. Canceling shows weakness, shows that threats work. That's not acceptable. Even if it gets you killed? Something flickered in his dark eyes. Especially then, because if I die running from a threat, the people under my protection become vulnerable. You become vulnerable. Maya becomes vulnerable. That's not acceptable either. One of the men called out in Italian. Dominic responded sharply, then turned back to Emma. We've confirmed 3 suspicious vehicles in the area matching Marco's description. Colombian plates, registered to shell companies. His jaw tightened. He was telling the truth. Then please, don't go. Emma's hand found his arm without conscious thought. There has to be another way to show strength without literally walking into an ambush. There is. Dominic's expression hardened into something cold and calculating. We turn the ambush around. What happened next unfolded with military precision. Dominic's people had 20 minutes to reposition. Snipers on rooftops, plainclothes security mixed with the restaurant's invited guests, vehicles blocking exit routes, communication coordinated through encrypted channels. Emma watched it all from the monitors in the safe house, Vincent standing beside her, his own tension evident in the set of his shoulders. "He's going to actually go through with this," she whispered. "He has to. In his world, backing down from a threat is worse than facing it." Vincent's eyes never left the screens. But he's not stupid. He's turning their trap into his. At 8:00 p.m., Dominic emerged from a car in front of Bella Notte, flanked by security. He looked calm, controlled, like a man attending a normal business opening rather than walking into a potential execution. Emma's hands gripped the edge of the desk, her breath caught in her throat. The 3 suspicious vehicles Marco had warned about were visible on different camera angles, waiting, watching. Dominic entered the restaurant. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Guests arrived, music played, the opening proceeded normally. Then, one of the vehicles moved. "Contact imminent," Vincent said quietly into his radio. The vehicle stopped 20 feet from the restaurant entrance. 3 men emerged, reaching inside their jackets. And that's when Dominic's people moved. It was over in less than 60 seconds. The Colombians found themselves surrounded by armed men who'd materialized from positions they hadn't identified. Weapons were disarmed, hands were secured, and all 3 were forced to their knees on the sidewalk while restaurant guests inside remained completely unaware of what had just transpired outside. Dominic emerged from Bella Notte, walking directly to the subdued would-be assassins. Emma couldn't hear what he said, but his body language spoke volumes. This was a message being delivered. A demonstration of power and preparation. Police sirens wailed in the distance, called by Dominic's people, not the Colombians. By the time NYPD arrived, the scene was already contained. 3 men with illegal weapons apprehended by private security. Clean, legal. No questions about why they'd been there or who they'd been targeting. Emma watched Dominic handle the police with practiced ease, providing statements, cooperating fully, playing the role of legitimate businessman whose security had prevented a robbery attempt at his establishment. An hour later, he returned to the safe house. Emma stood when he entered, her relief so overwhelming she couldn't speak. She just crossed to him and wrapped her arms around him without thinking, pressing her face against his chest. Dominic's arms came around her immediately, holding her close. "I'm okay. We're all okay." "You could have died." Her voice was muffled against his suit jacket. "You could have died because you refused to show weakness." "But I didn't die because I prepared for every contingency." He pulled back enough to look at her face. "Emma, this is my world. Calculated risks, strategic positioning, understanding that sometimes the only way through danger is to face it directly." "I hate your world." But she didn't let go of him. "I know." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "But you're part of it now. And tonight proved that the protection I provide works. Marco warned you because he knew you'd warn me. That relationship, that mutual understanding that certain people are off limits, that's what keeps everyone safer." Emma wanted to argue, wanted to insist that this was insane and unsustainable, and she couldn't live like this. But she was still holding him, still breathing in the scent of his cologne and feeling the solid warmth of him alive and unharmed. "I was terrified," she admitted quietly. "So was I." The confession seemed to cost him something. Not of the Colombians, not of the ambush, but of the thought that if something went wrong, you and Maya would be left vulnerable. "That's what terrifies me, Emma. Not my own death, but the consequences of it for the people I've promised to protect." His forehead rested against hers, and for a moment they just stood there, breathing together in the aftermath of violence avoided. "Take me home," Emma whispered. "I need to see Maya, need to hold her and remember what normal feels like." "Vincent will drive you." Dominic's arms tightened briefly before releasing her. "I need to handle things here, but I'll call you tomorrow." "Promise?" "I promise." 3 months after the airport incident, Emma's life had transformed in ways she was still processing. The debt was gone. Maya's education was secured. Security was seamless and professional. And somehow, impossibly, she'd developed genuine feelings for the dangerous man who'd turned her accidental mistake into permanent protection. Dominic had started calling regularly, not just for security updates, but for actual conversations. About Maya's school play, about Emma's difficult shifts, about his own navigation of legitimate business and the criminal empire he'd inherited. He'd attended Maya's birthday party, bringing an extravagant dollhouse that made Emma's modest gifts look pathetic, and spent an hour playing tea party with a 6-year-old who'd decided he was nice for a grown-up. He'd shown up at the hospital after Emma's particularly traumatic shift with a patient who hadn't made it, sat with her in his car, and let her cry without trying to fix anything. He'd introduced her to his mother, a formidable woman who'd looked Emma up and down and declared, "She's stronger than she looks. Good. You need strong." And somewhere in those 3 months, protection had become something else entirely. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when Dominic appeared at her apartment unannounced. Maya was at a sleepover, giving Emma a rare evening alone. "I need to tell you something," Dominic said after she let him in. He looked uncertain in a way she'd never seen. "And I need you to be honest about how you feel about it." Emma's heart raced. "Okay." The investigation into the Colombians from the restaurant incident led to federal indictments. Big ones. Their entire eastern operation is collapsing. He paused. "Which means the threat to you is effectively over. The people who might have wanted information about my organization are either arrested or too destabilized to pursue it." Emma should have felt relief. Instead, she felt loss. "So, the protection ends," she said quietly. "The mandatory protection ends. The security that was necessary for your survival." Dominic moved closer. "But Emma, I don't want it to end. Not the check-ins, not the phone calls, not the time we've been spending together." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that what started as obligation became something real. For me, at least." His hands found hers. "You and Maya have become the best parts of my days, the parts I look forward to, the parts that make the rest of this life feel worth maintaining." Emma's breath caught. "Dominic, I know the timing is complicated. I know I'm not what you would have chosen if circumstances had been different, but I'm asking you to choose me anyway, consciously, without the protection and the debt and the obligation. Just choose me because you want to." Emma looked at their joined hands, at the contrast between his expensive suit and her worn jeans, at the physical representation of how different their worlds should be. "I'm a single mother who works as a nurse. Well, you're you. This doesn't make sense. Nothing about us has made sense from the beginning." Dominic's thumb traced circles on her palm. "But it works anyway. You make me want to build something legitimate. Something Maya could be proud of when she's old enough to understand. You make me want to be more than just the boss of a criminal organization." "I'm scared," Emma admitted. "Of your world, of the violence, of Maya getting hurt because of your enemies. I'm scared too, of losing another person I care about, of failing to protect what matters most." He pulled her closer. "But I'm more scared of letting you walk away and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been." Emma looked up into his dark eyes, seeing vulnerability she knew he rarely showed anyone. She thought about the past 3 months, the way he made her laugh, the way he remembered small details about her life, the way he'd sat through a 6-year-old's tea party with genuine patience, the way he'd held her while she cried. "I choose you," she whispered, consciously, without obligation. "I choose you, Dominic." He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing harder, Emma rested her forehead against his. "But we do this my way," she added. Slow. With boundaries. With Maya's well-being as the absolute priority. Agreed. His smile was genuine, unguarded. We do this, however you need to do it. And you have to keep working toward legitimate business. I can't build a life with someone who might end up in prison or worse. Already in progress. My attorney has been restructuring everything for months. Dominic's hands framed her face. I meant what I said, Emma. You make me want to be better. Epilogue. 1 year later, Emma stood in the kitchen of Dominic's townhouse. Their townhouse now, she corrected mentally, watching Maya help Dominic make Sunday dinner. Her daughter was out, explaining, with great seriousness, why unicorns were scientifically possible if you just believed hard enough. Dominic listened with complete attention, asking questions, taking her logic seriously in the way that had made Maya declare him the best grown-up besides Mama. They'd moved in 6 months ago, after a courtship that had been surprisingly normal despite the extraordinary circumstances. Dates at quiet restaurants, movie nights on the couch, slow integration of their lives until it felt natural instead of forced. The criminal empire still existed, but its footprint had shrunk considerably. Dominic had divested from most illegal operations, focusing instead on the legitimate businesses, restaurants, import companies, real estate. The transition hadn't been easy or complete, but the trajectory was clear. Emma's mother's voice echoed in her memory. Life doesn't always give you what you planned for. Sometimes it gives you what you need instead. She'd grabbed the wrong suitcase at an airport. That mistake had led to debt forgiveness, to protection, to a relationship she never would have imagined possible. And somehow, impossibly, it had led to this. Sunday dinner, a daughter who felt safe, and a man who'd proven that people could change when they had the right motivation. Mama, Maya called out. Dominic says we can have gelato after dinner. Did he now? Emma crossed to them, wrapping her arms around Dominic from behind. And what did we say about too much sugar before bedtime? That special occasions don't count. Dominic turned to kiss her forehead. And Maya finishing her math homework without complaining is definitely a special occasion. Emma laughed, letting herself sink into the warmth of this moment. This impossible, unexpected, perfectly imperfect life they'd built from chaos. The briefcase that had started everything sat in Dominic's office downstairs. Empty now. A reminder of how randomly fate could intervene. Emma had stopped believing in coincidences. Sometimes wrong suitcases led to right destinations, and sometimes the most dangerous man in New York turned out to be exactly what a single mother and her daughter needed. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.